When his teacher writes a problem so difficult that even Ph.D. students fail to solve it, everyone laughs. Everyone except Jason. Watch as the quiet boy takes on the impossible, challenges the brightest minds in the nation, and proves that true genius isn't about recognition. It's about focus, courage, and the power to solve the unsolvable. Every story begins with a voice. Make sure you're here to hear them all. Subscribe now. It was a bright Monday morning at Lincoln High School. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating room 204. The usual chatter of students quieted as the bell rang, and Mr. Caldwell, a tall, strict-looking math teacher, stepped to the blackboard. His reputation preceded him. He challenged students to think, not just memorize. Jason Carter, 15, sat quietly at the back. His warm brown skin and calm brown eyes gave little away, but inside, his mind raced. Math was his passion, a world where problems were puzzles waiting to be solved. The moment he saw today's equation on the board, a long, complex formula even seasoned students struggled with, he felt a thrill. "Class," Mr. Caldwell began, "chalk in hand, today's problem is something no one has solved. Not even my Ph.D. students could crack it. If anyone solves it, they will receive recognition in front of the class and my personal recommendation for advanced programs." He smiled slightly, confident that none of them would manage it. Students exchanged nervous glances. Some muttered under their breath. A few sighed, already convinced it was impossible. Jason, however, opened a fresh page in his notebook. He picked up his pencil and began working. Each line of calculation flowed naturally, his pencil scratching steadily. Mr. Caldwell walked the aisles observing students' attempts. Many had stopped halfway, scratching their heads, frustrated. A couple stared blankly at the board. When he reached Jason's desk, he paused. The notebook was filled with neat, methodical calculations. Every step logical, precise, and moving rapidly toward a solution. "Jason," Mr. Caldwell said, leaning over, "do you really think you can solve this?" Even my top Ph.D. students struggled. Jason looked up calmly. "I have an approach, sir." His voice carried no arrogance, only quiet confidence. Whispers spread across the classroom. How could a quiet kid at the back even attempt this? Jason ignored them, breaking the problem into smaller steps. His mind moved like a machine, every calculation building on the last. Minutes passed. Most students had given up, tapping pencils or erasing mistakes. Jason continued steadily. Fully immersed, Mr. Caldwell returned, muttering to himself. He might actually be on the right track. Some students peeked at his notebook, eyes wide with disbelief. Finally, Jason set down his pencil. "I have finished, sir," he said, pushing the notebook forward. The classroom fell silent. Mr. Caldwell flipped through the pages, checking each line. Slowly, astonishment spread across his face. Every step was correct. The problem he had considered impossible had been solved perfectly. The students whispered among themselves. "No way, he did it." Even the Ph.D. students failed. Mr. Caldwell straightened, smiling in disbelief. "Jason, this is incredible. Well done." Jason nodded, quietly pleased. He had done what he loved, solving a problem, and that alone mattered. Mr. Caldwell turned to the class. Notice Jason's approach. He broke the problem into parts, analyzed each carefully, and built toward a solution. That is true understanding. Thinking differently is what separates the average from the exceptional. Jason smiled slightly, knowing that math was more than numbers. It was about patterns, logic, and creativity. As students filed out, whispers followed him. Some impressed, some envious, others curious. The quiet kid at the back had made everyone notice. He didn't seek attention, but the spotlight had found him. At home later, Jason reflected on the day. Recognition was nice, but the real thrill was in solving the problem. Deep down, he sensed this was just the beginning. The classroom was quiet after. Jason handed his notebook to Mr. Caldwell. Every student felt the tension, holding their breath as the teacher began to read. Mr. Caldwell's sharp eyes scanned the first page, then the next slowly. He double-checked calculations, tracing each step carefully. A flicker of disbelief crossed his face. This is correct," he muttered under his breath. His voice carried barely contained astonishment. Jason had approached the problem in a way he had never considered, breaking it down with logic and creativity that even advanced students struggled to master. The students whispered among themselves. Some leaned forward, trying to see the notebook. Did he actually solve it? One asked. Another shook their head. Even the Ph.D. students failed. Mr. Caldwell looked up at Jason, his expression a mix of pride and astonishment. Jason, this is incredible. You've solved a problem no one else could. He paused, then added, explain your method to the class. Jason nodded, standing quietly. I divided the problem into sections, he began, speaking calmly. Each section led to the next. And I looked for patterns that weren't immediately obvious. Once I saw the structure, the solution became clear. A few students tried to follow, but most could barely comprehend the steps. The complexity was beyond their experience. Yet Jason explained with clarity and patience. He didn't boast. He simply shared his thought process. As he spoke, Mr. Caldwell realized the depth of his students' talent. This was not just problem-solving skill. This was genuine genius. He turned to the class. Notice how Jason approached it. This is not memorization. This is critical thinking, observation, and insight. That is what sets a true mathematician apart. Whispers continued. Some students were impressed, others skeptical. A few glanced at Jason with envy. He seemed ordinary until this moment, yet he had achieved something extraordinary. After class, Mr. Caldwell approached Jason quietly. I've never seen anyone solve it like that. You have a gift, Jason. I hope you realize how rare this is. Jason smiled slightly, not proud but satisfied. Thank you, sir. I just like solving problems. As students left, the news spread quickly. Jason's reputation as a math prodigy had begun, not through arrogance but through undeniable skill. The quiet boy at the back of the class had just made history in room 204. By lunch, the news of Jason's achievement had traveled across the school. In the cafeteria, students clustered in groups talking excitedly. Did you hear? Jason solved the impossible problem. Even the Ph.D. students failed. He's amazing. Jason sat with his small circle of friends, trying to keep calm. His lunch tray remained untouched as students approached him, asking questions, praising him, or challenging how he had done it. Jason answered politely, careful not to reveal the full method. He wanted the work to speak for itself. Some students stared in disbelief. Others whispered about who might be the next to try and whether anyone could match him. Teachers had also heard, and Mr. Caldwell began planning to share Jason's work at the faculty meeting. Jason's mother, a nurse, called him on the phone that evening. I heard about today, she said warmly. I'm proud. But don't let the attention distract you from what matters, your passion. I just enjoy solving problems, Mom, Jason replied. Recognition isn't the goal. Later that evening, he sat at his desk with another challenging problem. Even after the attention and whispers, his excitement remained unchanged. Math was a puzzle, a challenge, and a world where he felt at home. Recognition, applause, or envy did not matter. What mattered was understanding, thinking, and solving. Little did Jason know, this moment would mark the start of a journey far beyond his classroom. His talent would soon attract attention from competitions, universities, and even people outside his small town. But for now, he focused on the problem in front of him, completely absorbed in the challenge. The quiet boy at the back of Lincoln, high school had stepped into a new chapter of his life. The impossible had been solved, and the world would soon begin to notice. The next morning, Jason arrived at school to find the atmosphere different. Students whispered as he walked down the hallway, some glancing at him with admiration, others with envy. Posters for the math club and notices about upcoming competitions caught his eye, but his mind was on the problem he had solved yesterday. In class, Mr. Caldwell stood at the front with a serious expression. Jason, I want to announce that your solution has been recognized by the district's academic board. They were astonished that a high school student solved a problem that had baffled even Ph.D. students. The room erupted in murmurs. Jason remained calm, his hands folded neatly on his desk. He felt a mix of pride and nervousness. Recognition was new, and with it came pressure. Because of your performance, you are invited to represent our school in the statewide math competition. Mr. Caldwell continued. This is a rare honor, Jason. Are you prepared for the challenge? Jason nodded quietly. I will try my best, sir, he replied. His classmates whispered and stared. Some were impressed. A few were skeptical. He's only 15. Can he really compete with older students? One asked. Jason's friend Marcus shrugged. I've seen him solve problems that would take adults hours. He can do this. At lunch, Jason sat with his friends trying to avoid attention. But it was impossible. Students approached him with questions and praise. The whispers followed him down the hallways, and even teachers paused to nod at him as he passed. Jason felt the weight of expectations settling on his shoulders. Later in the library, Jason opened a new set of math problems. The challenge was different now. Solving problems was no longer just personal enjoyment. There were eyes watching, expecting perfection. He worked steadily, writing each calculation with care, thinking deeply and checking every step. Mr. Caldwell visited the library, watching quietly. "Jason, I know this is a lot to handle," he said. "People will expect extraordinary things from you now. Remember, focus on your understanding, not just the attention." Jason nodded, appreciating the advice. "I just want to understand the problem, sir. The recognition is secondary." By the end of the day, Jason had solved several challenging problems. Despite the pressure, his mind remained sharp. Yet he knew the statewide competition would test not just his skill, but his ability to perform under scrutiny. He returned home that evening, feeling a mixture of excitement and anticipation. That night, Jason lay awake, thinking about the upcoming challenge. He visualized each type of problem he might face, imagining strategies and approaches. Sleep came slowly, his mind restless, alive with numbers and equations. The quiet boy who once preferred to sit unnoticed at the back of the classroom was now a rising star. Recognition had arrived, but with it came new challenges. Jason realized that solving problems was no longer just a personal passion. It was becoming his path to something greater. The morning of the statewide math competition arrived. Jason, dressed in his school uniform, walked into the large auditorium with hundreds of students from different schools. The tension was palpable, each student carrying their own reputation and expectations. Jason's heart raced, but he reminded himself to stay calm. The competition hall was enormous. Rows of desks stretched across the room, each with a contestant absorbed in their own thoughts. Jason took his seat near the back, preferring to focus rather than observe others. The proctor handed out the problem booklets. Jason opened his and scanned the first few pages. The problems were complex, some of them designed to stump even the brightest minds. Jason began working methodically, breaking each problem into smaller steps, just as he did in class. His pencil moved steadily, calculations flowing with precision. Around him, students frowned, paused, and scratched their heads. Jason felt a quiet satisfaction as he progressed, solving each problem with focus and clarity. After the first hour, the proctor announced a short break. Jason leaned back for a moment, glancing at other contestants. Some were sweating, some murmuring in frustration. He realized that his calmness and methodical approach gave him an advantage. During the break, a few students approached him. "You're Jason, right? The one who solved that impossible problem in Mr. Caldwell's class?" one asked. Jason nodded politely. "Yeah, that's me. Do you think you can win today?" another student asked. Jason smiled faintly. "I just focus on the problems. The rest doesn't matter." Back at his desk, Jason resumed the competition. Problems that seemed impossible at first began to unravel under his logic. Step by step, he found solutions, checking and rechecking each one. Time passed quickly, but his concentration never wavered. As the final minutes approached, Jason wrote down his last answer and leaned back. He had completed every problem, confident in his work. Around him, students were still struggling, some panicking as time ran out. Jason quietly closed his booklet and submitted it. Mr. Caldwell, who had accompanied him, approached with a proud smile. "Well done, Jason. No matter the results, you've proven yourself today." Jason nodded, feeling a quiet thrill. The competition was only the beginning. Recognition, challenges, and even pressure would follow. But he had learned that focus and calm thinking were his greatest strengths. The results of the statewide competition were about to be announced. Jason sat in the crowded auditorium, heart racing. He had completed every problem, confident in his solutions. Yet the tension in the room was palpable. Students whispered, glanced nervously at one another, and fidgeted in their seats. Mr. Caldwell leaned down beside Jason. "Remember, focus on yourself. Don't let the pressure get to you," he said. Jason nodded silently, his mind replaying each calculation, every step he had taken. The announcer took the stage, microphone in hand. "We now reveal the top scorers of this year's statewide math competition. The room fell silent. Jason gripped his pencil case tightly, a nervous habit he rarely displayed. The first few names were called, students from elite schools, some known for winning multiple competitions. Jason felt his stomach tighten with each name that was not his. Then came a name he did not expect, Ethan Blake. He was a 16-year-old prodigy from a prestigious academy, known for his aggressive problem-solving style and sharp mind. Jason had heard about him but had never met him. Ethan walked confidently to the stage, accepting applause. Jason felt a flicker of doubt. Could this be the rival who might finally challenge him? The announcer continued, pausing for dramatic effect. And the winner, Jason Carter, Lincoln High School. The room erupted. Some students clapped enthusiastically while others stared in disbelief. Jason's heart pounded, not with pride but with anticipation. Recognition was fleeting. What mattered now was proving himself in the upcoming national competition, where Ethan would surely be a formidable opponent. After the ceremony, Jason approached Ethan backstage. "I've heard a lot about you," Jason said, extending his hand. Ethan smirked, shaking it firmly. "And I've heard about you. Let's see if you can keep up at the nationals," he replied, his tone both challenging and respectful. The interaction sparked a quiet tension. Jason realized that the path ahead would not be just about solving problems. It would be about strategy, speed, and maintaining focus under scrutiny. Back at school, students huddled around Jason, asking about his thoughts on Ethan. Some were excited, others nervous. "Do you think he'll beat you next?" one student asked. Jason shook his head. "I don't think about winning against anyone. I focus on the problems. That's what matters." That night, Jason returned home and sat at his desk. He opened a fresh notebook and began working on new challenges, simulating the intensity of the upcoming national competition. He imagined Ethan as an obstacle, not a rival to fear, but a force that would push him to think faster, deeper, and more creatively. As he solved problem after problem, a thrill coursed through him. The suspense of the future, the unknown challenges, and the possibility of encountering someone equally talented made his mind sharper, his focus clearer. He realized that the real test was not recognition, but the ability to remain calm and inventive under pressure. The weeks before the national competition were filled with preparation. Jason spent hours each day solving increasingly difficult problems, practicing under time conditions, and exploring unconventional approaches. His talent grew, but so did the awareness that he was no longer just a student solving puzzles. He was a contender, watched by teachers, rivals, and even potential sponsors. One afternoon, Jason received an unexpected email from the competition organizers. It contained a problem unlike any he had seen before. The instructions were minimal, and the equations appeared almost cryptic. A note at the bottom read, "Only the most perceptive minds will find the solution." Jason stared at the screen. The challenge intrigued him, but a strange feeling crept in, a sense of danger, as if the problem was designed not just to test skill, but to expose weakness. He felt a chill, realizing that the path ahead would be far more treacherous than he had imagined. At school, Jason shared the problem with Mr. Caldwell, who examined it carefully. "This is unlike anything I've seen. It's brilliant, but also devious. Whoever solves this will truly stand out," he said, his brow furrowed. Word of the mysterious problem spread quietly among students. Some were eager to try it, others intimidated. Jason's friends urged caution. "Maybe you should take your time," Marcus said. "Don't rush. This could be a trap." Jason nodded. He felt the weight of expectation, but also the thrill of the unknown. Late at night, Jason sat alone with the problem, breaking it into pieces, analyzing patterns, and exploring every possibility. Hours passed, yet he did not grow tired. The suspense fueled him. He understood that solving this would not only prepare him for the nationals, but also prove that he could handle the unpredictability of real competition. Suddenly, Jason noticed an anomaly, a small error in the structure that most would overlook. It was subtle, almost hidden, but it pointed toward the solution. His heart raced. This was the first real hint of danger. The first challenge designed to test not just intellect, but perception and patience. Jason leaned back, realizing that the road ahead would demand more than raw talent. It would demand strategy, careful observation, and the courage to face uncertainty. For the first time, he felt the weight of being recognized not just as a prodigy, but as someone who must navigate obstacles that could break even the brightest minds. He picked up his pencil and began writing. The suspense of the unknown, the thrill of danger, and the possibility of failure pushed him forward. Jason knew that this was only the beginning, and that the true test of his genius was about to unfold. The National Competition Hall was enormous, filled with hundreds of top students from across the country. Jason walked in with Mr. Caldwell, feeling a mix of excitement and tension. Cameras and media crews were present, documenting the event. This was far bigger than anything he had faced before. His main rival, Ethan Blake, sat across the hall looking confident. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Both knew that today, skill alone would not guarantee success. Speed, accuracy, and mental endurance would determine the outcome. The proctor announced the start, and students opened their problem booklets. Jason's eyes scanned the first page. Each problem was intricate, testing logic, creativity, and intuition. He focused, breaking each into smaller steps as he always did. Minutes passed. Around him, whispers of confusion and frustration grew. Students erased answers, scratched their heads, and flipped back pages. Jason felt calm, letting the problems guide him. His pencil moved quickly, calculations precise, solutions forming naturally. Ethan, meanwhile, was fast and aggressive, solving problems with remarkable speed. Jason watched closely, noting Ethan's style. He realized that rushing could lead to mistakes. Jason slowed slightly, balancing speed with precision. Halfway through the competition, a sudden problem caught everyone off guard. It was cryptic, almost like the mysterious challenge Jason had received before. Students gasped, some freezing entirely. Jason studied it carefully, recalling patterns he had noticed in practice. Slowly, he wrote, step by step, piecing together a solution no one else seemed to see. The tension in the room was electric. Every eye was focused on the task, every mind racing. Jason felt a surge of adrenaline. The challenge was no longer theoretical, it was real, and the stakes were enormous. As the final minutes ticked away, Jason wrote the last solution, double-checked each step, and submitted his booklet. Ethan finished moments later, both of them leaving the hall with a sense of exhausted anticipation. The judges would now review their answers, and the outcome could change everything. While waiting for the results, Jason wandered the competition hall. He noticed whispers among the students and judges. Something was off. A misprint in one problem had caused confusion, but Jason realized he had solved it correctly, despite the ambiguity. Others were panicking, unsure how to proceed. Suddenly, a junior judge approached Jason. Your method on problem 7 is unconventional. No one else approached it this way. It might change the scoring. Jason nodded quietly, sensing the significance. His solution was unique, a combination of logic, insight, and creative reasoning. Meanwhile, Ethan had also noticed the anomaly. He approached Jason cautiously. I didn't expect that approach. You might actually have an advantage, he admitted. For the first time, Jason saw respect in his rival's eyes, mixed with tension. The proctor returned, calling all participants to their seats. The results are ready. We have a tie in the top position. Murmurs filled the room. Jason's heart raced. A tie meant a final head-to-head challenge. One last problem to determine the winner. The final problem was projected on the large screen. It was nearly impossible, a puzzle that combined logic, math, and perception. The room fell silent. Jason's mind raced, recalling every practice, every unusual problem he had solved before. Ethan's gaze was intense, equally focused. The countdown began. Jason and Ethan worked furiously, each step critical. Sweat dripped, pencils scratched, and every second mattered. Jason noticed a subtle pattern in the problem, a clue that others overlooked. His mind lit up with clarity, and he carefully applied the insight. When the final bell rang, both students had submitted their solutions. The judges examined the results, whispering among themselves. The suspense in the hall was unbearable. Jason's hands shook slightly, his heart pounding. Every moment seemed stretched, every second an eternity. Finally, the head judge stepped forward. The winner of this year's National Mathematics Competition is Jason Carter, Lincoln High School. The room erupted in applause, cheers, and astonishment. Jason felt a wave of relief, pride, and joy, though his mind was still calm from intense focus. Ethan shook Jason's hand firmly. You deserve this, he said with respect. Jason nodded, smiling faintly. It was a challenge worth solving. Mr. Caldwell approached, his face beaming with pride. Jason, you've proven that talent. Focus and calm thinking can overcome any challenge. You didn't just win. You inspired everyone in this room. Reporters asked questions, but Jason's answers were simple and humble. I just focus on the problems, he said. The rest is secondary. Back at Lincoln High, Jason returned to a hero's welcome. Students and teachers congratulated him, yet he remained grounded. The journey had taught him that recognition was fleeting, but the true reward was understanding, solving and pushing one's limits. That night, Jason sat at his desk with a new problem. Even after national victory, he felt the same thrill as before. Numbers, patterns, and puzzles were his world, and he was ready for the next challenge. The quiet boy at the back of the classroom had not just solved problems. He had discovered the strength of focus, perseverance, and courage. And somewhere deep inside, Jason knew this was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, but he was ready. Calm, confident, and brilliant.